어건 하우절은 금융 저자이자 전직 칼럼니스트로 특히 경제와 개인 금융에 대한 독창적이고 통찰력 있는 시각을 제시하는 것으로 알려져 있습니다. 그는 심리학을 바탕으로 투자 및 재정적 결정을 설명하며 사람들이 재정관리를 이해하는 방식에 큰 영향을 미쳤습니다. 그의 유명 저서인 돈의 심리학에서는 부의 축적 및 유지, 경제적 성공에 있어 사람들이 흔히 저지르는 심리적 함정과 그 원인에 대해 깊이 다룹니다. 이 내용은 행복의 첫 번째 규칙은 낮은 기대치에 있다고 말합니다. 관련 내용 함께 들어보시죠.
In this book, you talk about exactly that. You say the first rule of happiness is low expectations.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you're talking about is comparison is the thief of joy because it just raises our own expectations, right? And with that, out the window goes our happiness.
Yeah. And it seems counterintuitive to people that if you want to be happy, for most people, it's if you want to be happier, you need to be ambitious. You need more. You need to make more money, work harder, have a more successful startup, whatever it would be. And that's true, but that's half the equation. The other half of the equation is keep your expectations low. So the gap between those two, it's the gap between those two that actually accrues to happiness over time.
How did you learn that?
I think there have been a couple little stories that really stuck out to me. One that I love that just knocked me on my ass the first time I read it was Stephen Hawking, the late physicist who was, without exaggeration, one of the smartest people to ever walk this planet. He was just an absolute genius. And a quirk, of course, is that he had a motor neuron disease and he was paralyzed from head to toe. He had no control over his body. He spoke through a computer. Not a single muscle in his body could he actually control by himself. So he was, physiologically, it's one of the worst lives that you can imagine. And he did an interview with the New York Times a couple years before he died. And during the interview, he's talking about how happy he was and how amazing his life was. And the New York Times they asked him, what is your secret to happiness? Like, if there's anyone who has the right to complain about life, it's that guy. And he's talking about how happy he was. And he said, my expectations were reduced to 0 when I was 21, which is when he got his disease. And he said, everything else since then has been a bonus. So this is like the guy whose life is has ended up in a way that most people watching that would say, that's among the worst scenarios you can imagine. And he's probably happier than you and I because his expectations were so low that just waking up in the morning and seeing the sunrise and getting to go to work and talk to people was this magical gift. I mean, you can imagine, not to get too morbid about this, but imagine you're on your deathbed and the doctor is very confident that you're going to die tomorrow. And then let's say that you make it one more day. What is that sunrise going to feel like? What's that, holding your wife's hand for one more day going to feel like? It'd be amazing just because your expectations were on the floor. Mm-hmm. And so it's always like that. And you go through life seeing so many people who have everything, all the money, the great family, all the health, the beauty, everything you can imagine, and they're not happy for it. And it's because with everything that they have, their expectations rise not only to that level, they might rise above it. So if your expectations rise faster than your income, you're never going to be happy with your money, no matter how much money you make. You can make $1 billion a year, but if you needed and wanted 1.1 billion, you're broke. You feel broke. And the reverse of that is true too. There are people who make $50,000 a year, but if they only need 40 to be happy, they're stoked. They feel great. And so I think that's one of the reasons it's so important is because managing your own expectations is more in your control than managing your circumstances in terms of raising your income, raising your investing returns. It's not that you can't control raising your income. You can be ambitious and smart and entrepreneurial, of course, but it's more in your control to just inside your head to say, I'm going to try to want less. That's just a mental exercise. That's not to say it's easy. It's not easy at all, but you have total control over doing it.
내용이 유익하셨다면 구독과 좋아요, 알림 설정 부탁드리겠습니다. 시청해주셔서 대단히 감사드립니다.